Hi, I'm Joe Lahr. I'm editor of TDC's Farmgate, and today we're talking with Chris Gravel. Chris is a lawyer working for the federal government, and she said to me that she would appear on TDC's Farmgate to talk about her Lyme disease. Chris, welcome to our little show here this afternoon.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be somewhere I've never been, so I've never been on your show.
Well, I mean, but anyway, we're here about talking about some very serious things, and it was a while ago when you told me that that you got Lyme disease. Can you tell me where you live and how you got Lyme disease?
We're in the Thousand Islands, and we are on LaRue Mills Road, which is just north of the Parkway, which runs right along the St. Lawrence River and the border between the United States and Canada. Mm-hmm. And we live in the woods. We have a 600-foot driveway that goes up and over a cliff, and it borders on park property. So we are right in the thick of the woods, and we heat with wood. So the ticks in our place are just rampant. And we used to have a dog. Having a dog means that they will bring them inside with them, and when you see an engorged tick on your kitchen floor, you wonder, did that drop off me, you, or the dog, kind of thing, and you don't know. And you're just lucky that you saw the thing before it managed to, they're usually like a little turtle on their backs, unable to turn themselves over. But if they do, they crawl off into a corner and lay their 2,000 to 4,000 eggs in your house, and after a certain passage of time, all those eggs will hatch, and there's a potential for some of them to be infected depending on the species. So,
okay. Now, can you tell me about getting Lyme disease? How did you get Lyme disease, Chris?
To my understanding, I got Lyme disease through getting bitten by one of these ticks. I was with a friend and my dog, and we were walking along Hawes Road, which is off LaRue Mills Road, and it's an area where there's again more park property, and so we felt the freedom to go and explore some of it. And when we came out of that section at the very end of Hawes Road, we discovered that we were covered in these tiny little black ticks. They were about the size that a nymph would be at the end of its first summer. It's hatched from the egg in the spring, it's been a nymph all year, and it's finally turned black from a light beige, and you can see the legs. It's big enough for you to see that it has legs, and it's a tick, and we picked dozens of these things off ourselves and the dog. That night, I'm lying in bed and I feel something crawling along my arm, and I cover it with my hand and go to the bathroom and see that it's not attached yet. It's still looking for a place that it wants to use to suck my blood like a vampire, and to also disgorge some of its own saliva, and pathogens are in that. And when they do that, then the infection is spread from the gut of the tick to your bloodstream.
That was about 6 years ago?
That was about 5 years ago, but maybe 6 by now.
And you've been, at that time, after that, you actually diagnosed with Lyme disease?
I have never yet been diagnosed with Lyme disease except by a naturopathic doctor, and by a lab in California known as Hygienics that is specializing in very sensitive tests for Lyme, and the various strains and co-infections that go with it, and they gave a very clear positive by Canadian standards and American standards and the lab's own standards. And for that reason, I actually achieved some treatment from the second infectious diseases specialist that I saw. The first one did not want to give any credibility to the report of that lab because there's a distinct chasm of opinion that divides the medical and scientific community all over this continent regarding correct treatment, diagnosis, testing. All of those things are in great dispute, and very bitter disputes, and you as a patient just find yourself in the middle of it, trying to fight with people who are starting to scare you with their attitude. I've never been frightened of a doctor, but when you realize you're starting to lose your capacity to think straight, your capacity to handle frustration as a mature adult, your emotional attachment to family members, and your memories, and your capacity to retain your train of thought and to think, then you start to, well, I've just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Well, where you're going with is sort of my next question. My next question has to do with you've had Lyme disease for about 6 years, and can you tell me, I know it might be very hard to do, but tell me, what's it like to have Lyme disease?
Every person's experience is a little bit different. There are several strains of the pathogen, and so in my case, it was like having my memory gone. All of a sudden, I've had a fantastic memory most of my life. I couldn't remember people's names on the spur of the moment. I couldn't remember what my car was in the shop for, and I, at that point, was traveling 300 kilometers a day, so my car and its upkeep was a major and everyday occupation of my mind. So to have somebody say, "What's the car in for today?" and me go, "I can't remember," was actually frightening to me. To be in the middle of a law lecture at work for some new people and to lose my train of thought when I've been a public speaker since I was 18, this was frightening, not just kind of disturbing. Oh, you're getting all up there, you're like 47, perhaps you should be going through menopause, and I'm sure that's, you know, the reason for all your ails. Well, then you start having palpitations, and then you start having headaches that nothing will touch. They're not migraines. They feel like the back of your spine, the brainstem is on fire, and it reaches up into your face, and you get flushed, and then into your scalp, and it feels like your head's burning up. And I'm not a slacker at work, but I can remember during the times when these headaches were like every day, and I'm at work kind of going like this and trying to think straight and not knowing that I, have this disease yet, because no one will admit it yet, and trying to work and then trying to drive home, and I was a mess. And
does it affect, you mentioned a lot that has to do as a mental thing. What about the rest of you? Do you get aches and pains in your limbs? Or
absolutely. You get migrating pains that, maybe it starts here on your arm, and it's very painful right here, and then suddenly it's over there, and then it's on your leg, and you don't know how to treat that. Do you want to take more painkillers, or do you want to apply arnica gel or some kind of pain ointment? What do you do with this? What do you do with it when it's your whole scalp that's burning up?
Doesn't sound very... Is there any time that it goes away?
The symptoms are definitely cyclical, although for me they were not cyclical at first. I didn't recognize any cycle, and then I would feel better for a little while and think, is it all in my head? Am I going crazy? And then I would have these symptoms come again and go, write to my boss at work and say, I don't know how much longer I can keep my job. I don't know. I can't prioritize. I don't know how to get things done. My productivity has dropped like a stone. And I would think that I'd have to quit or go on disability or whatever, and 3 days later I'd be fine, and I'd think, oh, what did I just tell my boss?
It doesn't sound very nice at all.
No. You become very short-tempered with people like your in-laws and your relatives, and people that you spend a lot of time with, and anyone who really needs your time. Suddenly you don't care. You don't have the the presence of mind to meet their needs. And at this age, you're in the sandwich generation. All of your relatives and friends want your time, and you don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been at this for 6 years. Do you see anything in the future for a cure or for the number of people that are out there that have this terrible thing?
I do. First, I want to say that we have to come up with an effective vaccine, because trying to control ticks is a mistake. It's next to impossible, first of all, and secondly, we know what happens when we go after one tiny segment of the ecology, that it impacts so much else that we don't know what damage we're doing. They suggest spraying DEET. Well, they used to do that in the 60s, and it resulted in the eggs of certain predator birds and ravens not being able to sustain the chicks' growth, and we lost ravens and eagles, and they're just starting to return to this area. So we don't want to spray with DEET, but that would work against ticks. But we'd have to spray everywhere. Everywhere. These things are in your backyard. They're on the necks of the birds that sit at your feeder. If you happen to have an apartment building with a balcony and those pigeons come onto your balcony, you're at risk. These things, if your cat goes out onto the porch and one of these things has dropped off or whatever, and no one is safe, in my opinion.
So just because you live in the rural areas, you think that people who live in cities are at as much risk?
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. I would say that none of us are completely safe, just because, in my experience, the vectors, the animals that will carry these ticks to you, are seen in our cities. You know, I work in Gatineau, which is part of the National Capital Region, and I have at night had to brake to avoid deer crossing the road in front of me in downtown Gatineau or downtown Ottawa. We've heard about moose being in Ottawa. We've heard about bears being in Ottawa. So when the worst one is birds and mice and chipmunks and squirrels, then we know these animals, and raccoons, these animals inhabit our cities, and they are everywhere.
And they do carry...
The ticks love blood, no matter whose blood it is.
Yep.
So they are transporting a tick from wherever they pick it up to wherever their rounds are within the city, and when the tick decides to drop off and find some place to crawl away and lay its 2,000 to 4,000 eggs, then you've got a whole new population spreading very quickly in that new area.
I just want to thank you, Chris, for dropping in and sharing your experience with us, and good luck.
You know, there's one question I didn't answer that I'm sorry. You lose your train of thought so easily. You said, is there an answer? There really is. The naturopathic community has been able to do more intense study on this than the medical community has, and they've discovered that there are 2 extra forms that the pathogen will take once it is inside the human body, and that these forms have to be destroyed before the antibiotics that are delivered can access the spirochete bacterium. So what we need to do, first of all, is combine naturopathic medicine with medical physicians.
Yes.
And secondly, we need to make sure that each province gives enough regulatory freedom to their naturopaths to perform all of the potential remedies. Each province decides what it allows a naturopath to do, and some remedies I've been advised to take. Well, if you can get yourself to Vancouver, I've got a friend who can give you such and such a treatment. If you can get yourself to Edmonton, I can get... If you can get yourself to California for 3 months, I can get you, you know... And these things are all possible, but very, very pricey. and I've got a mortgage like everybody else. So, you know, some things can be considered and some things cannot, but since the naturopathic community knows how to combine its remedies with antibiotics in an effective way, better than 2 to 3 years at a time of just antibiotics, I think that is the way that the country should take its national strategy that they are trying to develop at the conference that Elizabeth May made happen or made possible. Within 6 months, she's going to ensure that a conference is held of all health ministers across the country, and a national strategy is approved. And that's been tried once before unsuccessfully, but I think there's enough research now to be able to do that.
Anyway, thanks again, Chris.
Thank you, Joe.